Alright, hey there guys. So today I'm going to be teaching you about functions and variables. We're going to be using the wiki to give you guys an in-depth explanation on what a function is and what a variable is in some situations in which you use them. Now, I don't have my webcam on this time because last time I had it on and it kind of got in the way of some of the text. So for the sake of being able to read the text and such, I have it off. So let's go ahead and get started. We're starting first with functions. So I'm going to go ahead and read this off first. So functions perform specific tasks. Some functions are already predefined, and some functions you have to create yourself. Methods are also an example of functions for specific objects. The idea behind most functions is either to check or modify something, or to save yourself some time by avoiding repeating code. Functions are also used to define code that you don't want to call immediately. So what it means by this is it performs a specific task. So say you make a function that only runs the options to print hello and then print goodbye. You can keep that function only does what's within it. There are some predefined functions which I'm not going to get into yet. And what we're going to do is, what it means by the idea behind most functions is to either check or modify something. Means typically when using a function, you want to use it in conjunction with multiple things to make sure it runs. You can use it in pretty much everything functions are used in. I shouldn't even say pretty much everything. When you go from creating just a simple tool that when you click it makes light to something complex, sorry, not complex, as say making a devil fruit or jutsu or whatever kind of thing you're doing. I don't want to make it like show specific. So this would be an example. So here we have a function called you can repeat me. So here every time we have it, we have our function here. Well, what our function does is, as you guys can see here, it prints hi to the output, then it prints on a separate line. I like saying hi to the output, then it says hi there. Now what this here is, this is how you call it. You have the name of the function here. First you specify your function, then you name it. Alright. So after that, what you're going to do is you're going to want to call the function by stating the name of the function with parentheses. Now what these parentheses are for is we have these things called parameters and arguments. I'm going to be getting into those a little further in the future with some more videos, so we're going to go ahead and overpass that for now. But in the case of this, what it meant by saving time, not having to rewrite code and reusing. So whenever we run this, whenever we type you can repeat me, after writing the function, it prints all of this. So instead of having to sit here and type it 4 different times, you only have to type it once and then call this. In the long run, it saves time if you're working with larger scripts. Now, a major thing you're going to want to know about functions is you can call a function within a function. This is a perfect example. So we have 2 functions here. Our first function, which prints we're in quote-unquote first function and second function. And then we have our main function here. So at first, when we start running main, we have to call first function. So that prints whatever's in first function. Then we print we are in main, which comes here to the output, and then it runs the second function, which prints we are in second function. This is all done after calling main. So if you check your output, you'll notice how the execute main, it'll execute the main function, then put a bookmark where you called first function. Execute first function, print we are in main, bookmark where you called second function, and lastly execute second function. You can also do mathematical equations within functions. So everything between the function, calling it, and end sets what your function will do. So declaring a function by the name 2 plus 2, you can name the function anything you want actually. It doesn't have to be 2 plus 2. You can name it Charlie Chocolate or Charlie Chocolate. You can name it Billy's Chicken Nuggets, whatever you want to call it really. And this is just basically a function and we call it. I mean, I'm going to do a visual representation in a little bit after I go over variables. So let's go ahead and get into variables. It's a pretty straightforward definition of variables. A variable is a name you can use to hold a value. In Lua, a variable can have any data type such as a number or a string. So this basically means we can set a name to something we want to make. So say we want to call our value of, say we want to call the amount of health we have as x. We could say x equals character.humanoid.health. So that now whenever we call x, we get that statement. So this is an example of setting a variable. So you usually do it with using the equal sign, the equal operator, if you want to call it. So in this scenario, we have x equals 10 and word equals hello. So this is a number value and a string value. By number value, it's not an integer value, meaning it's not limited to whole numbers from negative infinity to positive infinity. It can be any number, any amount. It can be negative 0.379824, whatever you want to put, and it'll still work. Now a string. A string, you're going to want to be careful unless you know about strings, which you can do just a simple bracket, not bracket, quotes, sorry, and then add your little text and then another quotes. Now with variable x at number 10 and word as a string of hello, we can print x and we can print word to get what their value is. So if we were to print x, we would get 10. If we were to go ahead and print word, we'd get the string hello. So you can also change a variable simply by assigning another value to it. So in the first scenario, we have n equals 12, print n. Then we take the same variable n and we set it to something else, which in this case is 24. And then we print it and get 24. So basically, if you have a variable, you name it, say we name x as 23, trying to call x and setting it to something else basically overrides it. So you set a new value to it and replace the old value, as shown per this statement here. Even though n was assigned to a value of 12, its value was overwritten, emphasis on overwritten, by the second assignment of 24. Now this, alright, so we have our variable n equals 78. So now whenever we call n, we have the value of 78, correct? So what if we want to set a value to that specific whatever, and in this case n. So we create a variable x, we set it to n. So say we were to change n to say 33. X would then become 33 because n is 33. So when we go to print x, we get 33. I feel like that's going to be a bit confusing the way I just explained that. When x was assigned to n, its value became the value of n. It's a pretty straightforward explanation. I really don't have to add to it. Now this is important. This is about naming your variables. Before you can use your variable, you have to name it. So the name you can give a variable can only contain letters uppercase, lowercase, numbers, or an underscore. This means that you shouldn't use a space characters in the name of your variable. So basically don't add a space in your name. It must start with an underscore or a letter. It cannot be a keyword. So it can't be like if, and, or, then. You can't just call it then equals blah blah blah. You can't start it off with a number itself. You have to start it off with a letter, an underscore. You guys can read that up here. Remember, you have to make sure that when you call the variable later on in the script that you use the same uppercase and lowercase. Coding it's case sensitive basically. Say we go ahead and make a variable x. We make two x's, a lowercase x and an uppercase x. The lowercase x would be, say, let's go ahead and say, I don't know, let's say 4. And then uppercase x equals 24. So now, if we were to go say print x, and we were trying to get this, due to the fact this is a lowercase, we would get 4. and vice versa. If you made it uppercase, you would get 24. If I could figure out how to type. So that's a pretty straightforward example. Now, you have to be really careful if you're doing like really long variable names, like say how to obtain something. Alright, now see how I have right here, I have my 2 lowercase. Say we were to go to print that. Alright, now you see the issue here. I would have made, I have lowercase 2 when I set the variable, but when I went to run it and print it, I put an uppercase 2, which is probably what I would have meant. So if you have a small typo like that, that could cause an error in your script. So it's always nice to pay attention to your names and make sure you're correct. And now we get into the local variables. A local variable is a variable that can only be used within the scope that it was called. A variable is made local by adding the keyword local before the variable. It is true that local variables are obtained faster than normal variables. This is because they are integrated into the current environment they were created in. So it's typically recommended, if possible, to use local variables due to the fact they are obtained faster than regular variables. So this helps if you're trying to cut down portions of lag. So it's basically the same way as setting your previous variable, just adding the word local in front of it. Alright, so by local, it means if you want to call it within said parts. So they can be seen, they're visible to things within its scope, which is shown here. Should probably fix this so you guys can see this. They're not visible to things in its outer scope. So what that means is that whenever we say local x equals merp, alright, set a variable. Alright, so say we try to call, let's make a function, we'll call it Shirley. Alright, so a function. The function itself is the scope. So here's our scope. Now say we make a function here, local hi hio equals derp. Now if we were to print hio, it would work. But say we were to go out here and try to print hio, we'd get an error and a nil value here due to the fact that it's a local and it only runs within its scope. Alright guys, you ready? Here's something I want to try introducing with the help of some of the things within Roblox Wiki. I want to add an exercise for you guys to do at the end of my video so you guys have something to practice with. So here we have your instructions for this exercise. Using only 2 lines of code, perform the following actions. Assign the variables a, b, and c to the values 1, 2, and 3. Switch the values a and c and change the value of b to 100. Now, you may not know how to do that all with 2 code, so I'll be lenient and give you up to 10 lines. That's fair, right? Up to 10. Alright, there, we fixed the text. So using up to 10 lines of code, perform the actions. If you guys can manage to do that, then without looking at the video, preferably, build up your mastery and knowledge of this, because it's going to be used later on in the future. Alright, and thank you for watching. This is the end of the video for now. I hope you enjoyed. If this helped you learn anything, drop a like and a comment on what you think. If there's anything I didn't explain enough and you guys want to learn more about, feel free to drop a comment and ask about questions. Ask some questions about it. If you're new to the channel, you want to check some stuff out, go ahead and check out my channel. I make tutorials as much as possible. And again, if you have any ideas, feel free to leave a comment. Tell me what you want to learn, and I'll try to get onto it. Thank you. See you in the next video. Hope you have a good day.